and welcome to our latest Cambly live session. We're going to wait for anyone that's still going to join our session to join the chat. For now, to those of you that don't know me, I am Teacher Daryl. I'm going to be your teacher today. Please send us a message in the chat. Tell us where you're from so we can know who you are, where you come from, and give you a shout out and say hi. To those of you that are joining us for the first time, if you don't know what Cambly is a great platform to learn English on the computer or on a phone. You can get one-on-one lessons with tutors like me in whatever you need. I'll explain a little bit more about that later on. Also, stay tuned because at the end of our session, I'm going to give you a discount code which you can use straight away to get a big discount. I'm not sure what it is, but you'll get a big discount and you can start your lessons. I see some messages coming through. We've got people from Sri Lanka, Kalipan, Harry Ho from South Korea. I think Harry Ho has been here before. Good morning from Brazil. I'm going to try and say this name, Adalton Tomas Silva. We've got people from Turkey. We've got Ali. Thank you for joining us today. Keep sending us messages so that we know where you're coming from. I'm going to start talking about what today's lesson is about. Now, there were a lot of people on other lessons that were sending messages. Oh, I see hello from Japan, from Slovenia, some other people from Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Brazil, Sudan, Bangladesh, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us today. So there were some other people on the chats in previous lessons that asked for a lesson or even a series of lessons about English literature. So something that is different from grammar and different from business English and idioms and those kinds of things. Something more about books and about stories and about analyzing literature. So that's what we're going to start with today. We're doing our literature for beginners. And I think this is going to be a really fun lesson. We're going to go through a lot of concepts about literature, about what it is, why we have literature, why we have stories. We're going to have a specific approach that we're going to take today and how we're going to have the lesson. I see some more messages coming through. Someone else from Brazil, Bashir from Kenya, Tenulai Silva from Sri Lanka. Again, thank you for joining us. All right, so we're going to go through the basics about what literature is. Then we're going to go through some important concepts in literature. We're going to look at a protagonist, which is the main character. We're going to look a little bit at him or her and talk about the different kinds of protagonists that we get. We're going to look at theme, genre, which is what the story is about and where it's set, what the category it goes into is, which is very important when we start to think about stories and literature, when we start to analyze it. We want to know, what is it saying? Why is it existing? We're going to spend some good time on characters today, looking at some looking at some essential characters that occur in a lot of literature, a lot of stories, and why we need to know them and looking at them. And then we'll look a little bit at structure today, the hero's journey that occurs a lot in literature and stories, and we'll talk about the structure of a story. All right, so let's dive right in. I think everyone's here. I see still messages coming in. Thank you so much for sending them. So let's talk about it. What is literature and why do we have literature? Now, literature is stories. We can class it as just stories. They could be short stories, long stories. They could be written down. They could be plays. They could be movies. All of these things can fall under literature. So all you have to remember is that literature is really just about stories. Sometimes we can even class poetry as being under literature, and anything to do with a story, anything that touches you emotionally, that takes you on a journey, that is literature. And even after we've done all of this today, I'm going to talk about a few books, some classics of English literature that you can start looking at. Maybe in other lessons, we'll take a look at them and analyze them specifically to see what they're about. But I will tell you some important works that you can start reading. So we know what literature is. Why do we have literature? Why does it exist? Literature exists basically to make us feel something or to maybe teach us a lesson. It's there to help us understand something about humanity or understand something about ourselves. So we could watch a story and maybe we can identify with what's happening there. And maybe, let's make an example. Let's say it's a story about a father and a son, and they have problems, and then they come together at the end. Now, maybe you have problems with one of your parents or someone else. You just have problems dealing with someone close to you. And then by watching this story or reading this story, you see them come together, and either it makes you feel good, it's not happening in your life, but it's happening in the story, or maybe you learn something from the story. Maybe I can use that. I know what that character is about. Maybe that can help me understand this other person. Obviously, there are other reasons why literature exists. It could be teaching you a lesson. Maybe it's a story with a political message or a message about the environment. So whatever it is, literature is there to tell us something and help us learn from it in some way, or to emotionally feel good after reading that story or seeing that story and experiencing it. And that is part of how we analyze literature. We want to understand, why does this story exist? What is the message of the story? What is the theme? Why did the writer make this story? Why did he choose this character? Why did he choose this setting? That is the analyzing of literature, looking at all these things and saying, that's what I think this story is about. And the great thing about literature is that you can have your interpretation, and maybe someone else can have their interpretation, and someone else can have another interpretation. It's very subjective. I'll write down that word just in case you don't know it. So it's subjective. And subjective is a great word. It means everyone sees it in a different way. So you see the story in one way, another person sees the story in another way, and that's what makes a good story, actually, if everyone can look at it in a different way. Now, what is our approach going to be today? Now, I don't know what stories you've read in English literature. Unfortunately, I do not have a huge knowledge of literature in other languages. I wish I did. So what we're going to use today, actually, maybe something that is more universal, something we all have seen, are going to be movies. Because movies are also a form of literature, and it's going to be a good starting point for us to understand characters, to understand protagonists, to understand theme, structure, all of that. Okay, because we've all seen some kind of movie. There's lots of popular movies that everyone's seen, and that's what we're going to use today in our approach. All right, so we looked at the basics, what it is, why we have it, how we analyze it, and what we're going to do today. So let's start straight away with the protagonist. Protagonist is a big word, and all it means is main character. Main character. In other words, it's the person we're watching. Now, what I want to talk about before we look at the different types of main characters is that I don't want you to think of literature as just being about the hero, a good guy against a bad guy, because not all stories are like that. And some of the best stories and the best literature is actually about watching someone become bad, or watching someone go through things where they don't always triumph. They don't always win. So don't think of this as the good guy and he's the main character and he's going to win. That's not always going to be the case. So the main character just means the person that we watch. It's the person the story is about. Again, we can sometimes call him the hero, but again, I don't want you to think of hero as being the good guy and he's going to win. That's not the way we should think about hero. Hero just means that he is the main character that we're following. Now, in terms of main character that we follow, the protagonist, let's talk about 3 types of protagonists and think of some examples. Oh, and that's another thing. Today is an interactive lesson. Don't forget that. This is a live lesson. If you have any questions about literature or maybe a book you read or anything else, please send messages in the chat. I'm also going to give you some questions as we go. As we do something, I'm going to give you some stuff to think about that I want you to send in the chat as well. So now you've got to start, taking in what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about 3 types of protagonists, 3 types of heroes, and some examples. So the main basic hero that we all know, let's think of him as like, I'm going to say good guy, only in terms of a guy that follows the rules. So a lot of stories are about a guy that follows the rules, and we identify with that. So he's a guy that if he's not going to steal, he's not going to kill, he's going to do the right thing. Okay, and we watch the story sometimes to see a guy do the right thing, and that's our very basic hero. And to be honest, it's not the most interesting hero because it's just the guy that does the right thing. It happens very often in stories. More interesting are some of the other types of protagonists. Now, the next one we have is an anti-hero. Now, an anti-hero, an easy example here is a thief. Now, we've all seen movies where it's a heist movie. So the thief wants to steal the diamond or break into the bank and steal all the money. And we enjoy seeing that guy do that, right? It's fun to see him plan and gather the team and steal the stuff. And technically, he's not a good guy. Technically, he's stealing from someone else. He's not really a good guy. If this happened in reality, if someone stole from you, you're not going to think that this thief is a good guy. But in the movie, it's fun to kind of put ourselves in him and watch or read the story or watch the movie and experience all of that. All right, so he is an anti-hero. He doesn't do the right thing. Maybe he has a very bad temper. Maybe he is someone that is he's violent, but for a good cause. And maybe he shouldn't be, but it's fun to see him do that. So he is an anti-hero. And then we have a tragic hero. Tragic is another word for sad. Tragic is another word for sad. So this is a sad hero. Now, a sad hero is, you'll often find this in Shakespeare. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Shakespearean plays. I'm going to write the name here. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the great plays that you can read from Shakespeare. And Shakespeare often has a tragic hero. This is, again, a hero, a protagonist. It's the main character. But there's something wrong with this main character. There could be a problem that he has that he doesn't grow out of. A great example is the play Hamlet. All right, so this is one of the great Shakespeare plays, Hamlet. And I'm just going to give you a quick summary. So Hamlet, his father is killed by his uncle, and Hamlet is very angry about that. He goes a little crazy sometimes, and he wants revenge, wants to get justice for his father, and he never grows out of that need to get the justice, to get the revenge. And at the end, yes, he kills his uncle, but he kills everybody else, and he himself also dies. So he is a tragic hero in that everyone he loved dies because of him, and he dies because he couldn't grow out of this problem that he had, this vengeance, this anger that he had. And there are other examples of a tragic hero. It could be someone that is very arrogant, and because of that, they push everybody away from them. And they never grow out of it, and they become isolated. And that's a tragic hero. So he doesn't die, but you can see that this main character, it's a sad ending. He doesn't grow. He pushes everyone away because he has this problem inside. So that is a tragic hero. Okay, so we've got the hero, basic, good guy, nice guy, does the right thing. Anti-hero, the thief, fun guy. We like him. We like to see him breaking the law or being a little powerful. And then the tragic hero that has a fatal emotional flaw a fatal emotional problem that he doesn't get over. And it's sad that he doesn't get over that. And final one we have, let me just do this in blue so you can see it. We have an antagonist. Now, the antagonist is not a main character, but it is the bad guy in the story. Now, it doesn't mean that this has to be a bad guy that wants to take over the world. That's not a bad guy. It's a bad guy in some movies. But in some stories, the bad guy could just be the person that is causing the problems for the protagonist. So maybe the protagonist is in love and he wants the girl, and the antagonist could be the girl's mother that says, no, you're not good enough for my daughter. So it's an antagonist. It's not someone that wants to rule the world, but it's causing problems for the protagonist. And a good story, the protagonist and the antagonist, they're both equally strong, because it's no fun to watch a story if the protagonist can just kind of push over the antagonist and there's nothing to conquer. So the protagonist and the antagonist, the good guy and the bad guy, they've got to be equally strong to make a good story, right? And that's another way to analyze literature, to say, well, was the bad guy, the antagonist, was he strong enough? Did he cause more obstacles, more problems for the protagonist, for the main character, or was it just easy for the main character? So that's one of the ways that we analyze the literature. Okay, now, first, what you guys can start doing, and I want you to start sending this in the chat, I want you to think of examples of these three, even of the antagonist as well. Now, you can draw this from all the movies you've watched, all the stories you've read, so you can think of some of the most popular movie genres like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Marvel movies, DC movies, anything you've seen, any story you've read. I want you to start sending examples of the hero, the anti-hero, and the tragic hero, and then the antagonist. Who has been a good bad guy in a story? All right, and then what we're going to carry on with is other characters in the story. So these are archetypes. It's a fun word, archetypes. And what it means is that these are characters that occur everywhere in stories. And why do we use these characters? Because they speak to a part of us, okay? A lot of us are going to fall into some of these categories. We'll be like them. And we like to watch a story about them to see how they deal with a situation. Now, these are not just for men or for women. These can be a man, this can be a woman, any of these. These are not just for good characters or bad characters. You can have a good guy or a bad guy that can be any of these characters. And they're not just for the main character. Okay, it could be for the main character or a side character, a friend that's in the story, or an enemy, a bad guy that's in the story. And as we're going through them, again, I want you to start to think of examples from popular culture, from stories, from anything you've seen of these different kinds of characters. All right, so let's take a look. Let's take a look. We've got the protector. Now, the protector, a good example, I'm going to give you one, is like Superman. Okay, Superman is like the protector. He wants to help everybody. He wants to do the right thing all the time and stand up for justice. Right, so he's a good protector. But remember what we said. This can be for a good guy or a bad guy. So a protector can also be a bad guy. All right, because a protector is usually quite strong. There's a little bit of power there. He has the ability to be strong and to push and to hurt and to do that, because he needs to be able to do that to be the protector. Superman has all those powers. He's super strong. He can fly. He can be fast. Everything, right? Now, if we take that and make him a bad character, we have someone that could be abusive. We have someone that could use all of their power and be bad. All right, they could take, instead of being strong and protecting the weak, they can hurt the weak. So the protector can become an abuser. So all of these are both sides. What's a good example of I want you guys to send this for me. What's a good example of a female protector in stories that we all know? Then let's move on to another one. So that's the protector. That's the guy that wants to stand up in front of everybody and protect them, and everyone stands behind him. Then we have the professor character. Professor character is the thinking person. So this person, they draw all their power from knowing things, from knowledge. Okay, now it could be knowledge of anything. All right, a lot of times we read stories. It's about someone like Frankenstein is a story about the main character is a professor. He knows a lot about anatomy, about electricity, and that's how he creates Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster. So the professor draws his power from knowledge, from knowing things. So a good example of a professor that we could see that happens in stories that it could be bad would be like a hacker. All right, a hacker, they know lots of knowledge about computers, and that's where they draw their power from, and that's them again being bad by using their knowledge. So this is not someone that's hitting you, but this is someone that's using their brain to hurt you. That's the professor, or using their brain to protect you or to help or to do something good. That's the professor. So again, I want you to start thinking from from favorite movies that you know. Give me an example of a professor. Give me an example of a protector. Let's move on to the next one. A lost soul. Now, a lost soul is someone that has a lot of emotion inside. They got a lot of sadness. Something's happened to them. They've suffered a trauma, and they're holding that all inside all the time. Sometimes they could be isolated. They want to stay by themselves. They see the world as being a dark place. They're very bitter. That's a dark soul, a lost soul. And sometimes we like to watch that character grow out of that, to kind of embrace society and kind of not get over the emotion, but kind of integrate it and become balanced with it. Obviously, taken to extremes, the lost soul could become very vengeful and very angry, and they just want to do things to people all the time because something's happened to them. All right, and again, I want you to start to think, especially in terms of maybe even superheroes, which we all know, who could be like a lost soul in maybe Marvel superheroes, DC or Harry Potter. Who's the lost souls in those stories? Because those are the interesting characters, because we can all understand being emotionally hurt and needing to grow out of that. Then we have the fun guy. All right, so a fun guy is a character that just embraces life. He's very open. He wants to have fun all the time. He's impulsive and spontaneous. A great example of a fun guy is, I'm going to use two examples here. They're going to seem a little silly. The one is from Seinfeld, from the series Seinfeld, and you have Kramer, who is the neighbor that always is doing something weird, and he's fun. He loves life. He enjoys life. And another example, maybe from your childhood, is remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And we had the character of Michelangelo, who just loved pizza and having fun. He is the fun guy, all right? But remember, all of these can be taken to another extreme. They can be a bad. So the fun guy taken to a bad side is someone that has too much fun. He is so spontaneous, or doesn't care about the rules to such a degree that he hurts people. He doesn't show up on time. He doesn't do the things that he's promised to do because he wants to have fun and he doesn't care. All right, so it takes a different kind of point of view from looking at him as a bad guy. All right, then we have a nurturer. Nurturer, the word nurture is like a mother. So when we talk about nurturing, it means we have someone that is being like a mother or a father or a parent and is taking care of someone. So we can all identify as, if we're parents, as the nurturer part of us. Taken to the bad side, you can become over-controlling. So there's lots of stories about a parent or a boss that is very controlling over their child or over their employee, and they just follow everything they do. They want to control their whole lives. So that's nurturer taken to the bad side. And again, start to think of examples. We're going to look after this one at the examples you guys have sent. And then we have the charmer. All right, so the charming, when you're charming, it means you have a quick wit. It means you can speak to people very well. You can make a good joke. People like you. You're very personable. And often the charmer is going to be very good with members of the opposite sex. So a man is going to be very good with women. The woman is going to be very good with men. There's good flirting. That's the charmer. All right, they're able to make a quick joke and everyone likes them. taken to the bad extreme, the charmer becomes a seducer. All right, I'm going to write that word down over here because it's such a good word. So the seducer will use someone else. They'll be charming, they'll say the right things, they'll get what they want, and then they'll leave. All right, so it's the charming person taken to the bad extreme. All right, let's take a look at what you guys are sending here and what we've got here. All right. See straight away here, the main character of Good Will Hunting is a lost soul. That's perfect. That is true. So in the movie Good Will Hunting, you've got, what's his name? Matt Damon. And he's a lost soul. He's got lots of anger inside, and he has to get over that. Very, very good. Thank you, Stacy Gian. I hope I said that correctly. What else do we have here? All right. Professor. Okay, so someone has said here that in Harry Potter, Dumbledore or Snape is a professor character. All right, so let's talk about that. What do we think? Is Dumbledore or Snape the professor? I would say Dumbledore is the professor. What is Snape? Okay, Snape is one of these characters. I'm going to see if you guys have figured that out already. Otherwise, send through. What do you think Snape is in terms of these characters? Let's carry on. Someone has said Wonder Woman. So that was our answer to a great protector character. That is a woman. It is Wonder Woman. Thank you, Harry Ho. Tom Sawyer. Jennifer Aduda has sent. I'm not sure which one you meant. I hope you're thinking that Tom Sawyer is the charmer, because he is. He's the guy that gets the other people to do what he wants. Then Superman is one of the most popular heroes. That is true. Thank you, Raphael. How about... All right, someone has asked the question. Kino So has asked, how about the Terminator acted by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2? Is he a hero, an anti-hero, or a tragic hero? So let's look at him, all right? So in terms of being a tragic hero, does he have a problem that he doesn't overcome? I think in that movie, the Terminator in Terminator 2, he learns to understand humans a lot better. At the beginning, he's just programmed to help the boy, John Connor, but he learns more about humans as he goes, and he's willing to sacrifice himself at the end to destroy himself for the sake of humanity. So I definitely don't think he's a tragic hero. I think he would be an anti-hero. Why? Because he kills people, he blows up buildings, he does what he needs to do to save John Connor and Sarah Connor. So that's a really great question. He is an anti-hero. We've got Muntaj Pillay. Is Batman a tragic hero? Very good question. I would say in terms of what we've seen of Batman, he does seem to have that part of him that he doesn't really ever get over. He does have that need for vengeance and that need to kind of show that he could have protected his parents that he always carries with him. He is a tragic hero, and he's also a lost soul because it's the same thing. He isolates himself. He's got a lot of anger inside. All right, let's carry on. Someone has asked the question, are articles part of literature? Now, it depends on the article. So if the article is nonfiction, if it's just giving you facts, it's not really literature because it's nonfiction. So literature is more about stories. It's more about telling a story, following someone on a journey. Thank you for that question. Who asked that question? Oh, I've lost it. Athkia Ibnath. I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly. Then we have Romeo and Juliet is a good example as well from Raphael. It is. It's another great example from Shakespeare. And both of them are actually tragic heroes. They're both tragic heroes because what do they not get over? They are victims of their family's hatred of each other. And they never get over that kind of fatalistic view of life that, well, there's nothing we can do. When if they worked through it, maybe they could have. So they decide to kill themselves. They are tragic heroes. What else do we have? I'm just going to jump up to the top here. All right. We're going to carry on now. Someone has asked, is a movie also called literature? Now, yes, for certain. A movie is part of literature. Why? Firstly, a movie starts as a screenplay. It's written down. It's a story. And there are books about it, or it comes from comic books, which are also a type of literature. Don't think of literature as just being a book, like words on a page. It's not the only literature we get. So definitely movies, even series are all part of literature. They are stories that we can learn from. All right. Oh, someone has sent like a long one here about Harry Potter. What do we have? Antagonist is Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Definitely. Professor character is Dumbledore. Fun character are the Weasley twins. It's very true. I hadn't even thought about that. That is very true. All right. And I don't see, someone has asked, what about SpiderMan? I want you guys to tell me, once we finish, what is SpiderMan in terms of the characters? And someone has said Snape might be an antagonist, and he secretly played the role of saving the protagonist. It's true. For a lot of the story, it seems like Snape is an antagonist. It's like he's always putting up obstacles to Harry. That's true. That's true, because Snape is a very complex character. All right. And I still want other people to try to guess what Snape is. Let's carry on with the rest of the characters. So we're going to go on to now the leader. Leader is an easy character to talk about. He's the guy that tells you what to do. All right. So in terms of Harry Potter, a leader would actually be Harry. In the books, Harry has a lot of plans, and he always is deciding with Hermione and Ron what they're going to do, and he tells everybody what to do. And another leader would also be Dumbledore, who kind of also leads and kind of moves everybody into place. So he's the leader. All right, so leader is easy. It's a boss. Then we have the free spirit. Now, free spirit is different from the fun guy. Free spirit is very spiritual. All right, so they are in touch with nature. They're in touch with maybe something mystical or magical. So they're open, and they're in touch with nature and a spiritual sense. And that's what they want to do all the time. All right. So a great example of a free spirit is from Friends. So in Friends, we've got Phoebe. So she is a free spirit. She's always interested in the spiritual side of things. All right. And she's always like talking about crystal healing or stuff like that. She's a free spirit. An adventurer, it's another easy one. An adventurer is someone that wants to go on adventures. They want to have fun, but kind of like in a big way. They want to go to a far off exotic place and have fun doing it. All right. So a great example of an adventurer character is like James Bond. James Bond is going to different places, meeting different people, doing different things all the time. He's an adventurer character. Best friend, very, very easy. This is the guy that's next to you. He's your best friend. And to be honest, that in a story, he doesn't do a lot. He is there to just support the main character, be a friend, emotional support, someone to talk to. So that's the best friend. All right. He doesn't really have a lot of his story happening, but he's there for the main character. Again, think of some examples. And then we have the Messiah character. Now, Messiah is it's talking about more of a religious character. Now, it doesn't mean that it's about religion. It just means that this person is there to help you grow. He's there to help you grow in some way. Okay, it doesn't have to be religion. It's just called Messiah because it's kind of about growth and spiritual growth. And so this is someone that's going to push you or push the character to grow in some way, even if they don't want to. Okay, so they have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of understanding of the world, and they're pushing the character to grow. And I'm going to give a great example again from Harry Potter because it's so popular in the chat. Dumbledore, again, is a Messiah character. All right, he pushes Harry to grow, and he pushes the others in the way that he wants them to grow. He's very controlling about that because he has the knowledge. He knows what's going to happen. All right, and what we can see also there is that these characters can be layered. They can be different things at the same time, which makes for a complex, interesting character. All right, before we go on, let's just see if you guys have come up with anything here. Joey from Friends is a super fun guy. Yes, very, very true. Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. Obi-Wan Kenobi, yes, would be like a Messiah character. It's very true. Perfect. Thank you, Harry Ho. All right. Okay, a question. Can we get one character that supports the instincts of more than one literature character? Yes, like we just said. So we can get a character that has both elements. I will give you a good example. All right. if we take a look at the Lost Soul and the Professor, a great example is the Hulk. All right, so the Incredible Hulk, the big green guy. Now, when he is the Professor character, he's all about thinking and like working on stuff. All right, but when he's the Hulk character, then he's full of that anger and that rage. All right, and those two sides work against each other. All right, just like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So yes, you can get characters that are multi-layered. And I just want to see if you guys figured out Snape. Someone says Hermione is a leader from their perspective, and it's very true. Hermione also has a lot of plans. I would say Hermione is also a professor because she knows a lot of stuff. Her power comes from all the stuff that she knows that she can tell people what to do. All right. I am a leader, says Harry Ho, and I bet you are. All right. I'm going to say right now that Snape, in my opinion, is also a lost soul. All right, because he has a lot of emotion inside that he's taken with him through so many years in that story. So those are the interesting characters. All right, you guys can carry on sending me examples of this. I want to talk now a little bit about theme and the hero's journey. All right, so I'm going to leave that up there. I'm going to leave that up there, but I'm just going to take off the top part. Now, like we said, part of a story or analyzing literature is about knowing what it's about. So we have theme. Theme means what is the story about and why did the writer write it? What does he want to tell us? Okay. Now, there are actually a lot of common themes. Now, the most common theme that everyone is going to know is good against evil. Okay. Everyone knows good and bad. It's like the most common part of any story written down or movie. It's the most common part of stories is good versus bad. And sometimes it's not really the most interesting of stories because we all know it so well. So we're not going to spend a lot of time with that. Let's look at a few other themes so you can start to understand themes that you see in stories or you read in stories. All right, another one that is very, very good is called The Journey of Innocence. To experience. Innocence to experience. Now, what does this mean? It means you are growing up and learning something. So think about a story about someone that doesn't know a lot about life, and then he starts to learn, maybe in good ways and bad ways, what life is about. He learns, you can't always trust what people say. But sometimes people are good. Sometimes people are bad. All right, so he goes from innocent, from trusting everybody and being like a child to understanding what life is about. So a lot of stories about children and as they grow up and teenagers, same thing. We could also take that kind of theme and put it into like a war story. So an innocent person that they join the army and they don't understand what war is about, and then they learn on the battlefield what it's about. They come back a different person. All right, so that's the journey of innocence to experience. Then another great theme that we often get is redemption. Now, redemption means change in a good way. So these are some very good stories. Someone has a problem. Maybe they started as a tragic hero. They've got something inside, and they do better, right? They get better. And that is some of the great stories that we like to see. Because when someone does better and they grow, they redeem themselves from the bad that they had in the past, that's a great story. It makes us feel that we can do better. And it makes us feel good to know that there are people in the world that do better like that. So redemption is a great theme. And then one more that we're going to look at now. There are lots of other themes. And this is another common one that we're not going to spend too much time on. Love conquers all. All right. It's like any romantic comedy you've seen. It's going to be about love and how they come together at the end, and love conquers all. Now, why do we need all these things about theme? Because everyone will see the story in a different way. They'll see a different theme. So sometimes the writer is very good and they can actually put many different themes into the story. So if we're looking at literature and analyzing it, we have to think, well, what is the theme for me? What does the story tell me about life? So that's where you must start to think when you are like watching stories or reading stories. Now, what is the theme? What is the message under here? What is this really about? What is the theme? All right. I see some more messages. Jack from Titanic is an adventurer and a charmer. Very, very good. Thank you, Natasha Marasingh. He is. What else do we have here? Jack Sparrow is an adventurer and a fun guy. He is. And he's also a bit of a charmer. He can say things that make people trust him when he needs it. So yes, that is very, very good. All right, now, we've looked at characters, we looked at theme, we've looked at growth and learning. We're going to talk now a little bit about the hero's journey. And maybe we'll do a little bit more about that in another lesson. So the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey is the actual story that the main character goes through. And I will give you guys a book that if you would like to, you can read, maybe even find a translation in a language that works for you. That's not coming out very well. Let me try this whiteboard marker. It's a bit better. If you guys want to learn more about the hero's journey and how it relates to literature and stuff like that, a book you can look up is from an author called Joseph Campbell. And his book is called A Hero with 1,000 Faces. So it's a very good book all about the journey that the hero goes on. All right, we're going to talk just basically about what that means. You guys can read more about that if you want, but we'll try to talk about it in another lesson as well. So the hero's journey is like the structure that stories usually follow. And because we've looked at Harry Potter so much today, let's use Harry Potter as our example of the hero's journey. So Act 1 of a story usually has the hero outside of the world that he's going to go to. All right, so the hero is, let's call it in his own world. So in Harry Potter, obviously, at the beginning, he's with the Dursleys and he's in his own world. He knows nothing about except the Dursleys. Okay, he's in that world. Even if we take this to another story, let's talk about a Sherlock Holmes story, just so that we can see that this is universal. Okay, in the beginning of a Sherlock Holmes story, there's no case. Sherlock Holmes is just in his apartment or his office with Watson, and they're not doing anything. They're in their own world. Nothing's happened yet. Okay? Then what we often have is something called an inciting incident. And this is just the thing that happens that causes the story. So if we look at Harry Potter, he turns 11 and he gets his invitation to come to Hogwarts. This brings him into a new world, all right, which is where kind of Act 2 is going to happen. So this is the new world. If we're looking at Sherlock Holmes, the inciting incident is often he gets a case, or someone is found dead, or the jewels are stolen. Something happens, it starts the story. Okay, it brings us into Act 2. And then we are in this new world, and we have to learn about this new world. Why are these kinds of stories so, why are they everywhere? Because it's our lives as well. If you think about your life, there's been many instances where you were in a certain situation, and then you have to go to a new situation. You start a new job, you start a new college, you start a new relationship. All right, you have to learn about that situation. That's why these stories are universal, because it's how we live our lives. We're in one situation, and then we go into another one because of something, and we have to learn about it. Now, Act 2 can take a long time. Lots of different things can happen in Act 2. And sometimes in Act 2, what people are looking for is this funny word called a McGuffin. And this word actually comes from a director called Alfred Hitchcock. You guys may have heard of him, Alfred Hitchcock. And the MacGuffin to him was the thing that everyone wants. It's the thing that people want, And that makes the story happen. It drives the story forward. So a great example of a MacGuffin is in Lord of the Rings. Everyone wants the ring. If you think about it, the ring in the story doesn't really do a lot. Okay, everyone wants it for like 9 hours or 12 hours or however many hours. Everyone wants it, but it doesn't do anything except make some of the characters invisible. That's all it does. But everyone wants it, and it drives the story forward. Okay, there's a lot of those in like adventure movies where there's a treasure map, or there's a thing, there's the treasure, there's a thing that everybody wants that makes the story happen. That is the MacGuffin. And so usually in Act 2, we find out about it. We find out why the bad guy wants it or who wants it. The MacGuffin could also be a person or a situation. So in a romantic story, what is the MacGuffin? It's happiness. It's the happily ever after at the end. That's what the person wants. All right. And the antagonist is stopping that from happening. So if we're talking about a good versus evil story, okay, good versus evil, the MacGuffin could just be peace. All right. If you're having a war, what you want is peace. You want the war to end. That's the MacGuffin. It's a thing that everybody wants. All right. And during Act 2, that's what we're going for. And what you will find is at the end of Act 2, and I want you guys to start looking for this now when you read a book, when you watch a movie, the end of Act 2 is a low emotional point. So something has happened. Maybe someone dies. Maybe the couple break up. Maybe the bad guy gets the MacGuffin and you're gone. All right. So there's a low emotional point where everything seems lost. All right. And then that drives us into Act 3, which is the final confrontation where the guy and the girl get back together, or there's a fight between the good and the evil, or the war reaches a big battle. But that is the structure. And why, again, do we have this low emotional point in a story? Is because we can identify with it. We can all understand that we've had low emotional points in our lives that we've had to struggle through. And remember, part of literature, part of a story is teaching us what we could do or allowing us to feel the emotion of seeing it, even if it's not happening in our lives. All right. So that is structure in a nutshell. So you guys can start looking out for that now. And the final thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you some books that you can start looking at, literature you can start to read that are classics of English literature, and then you can start to analyze it like we've done. Who are the characters? What type of character is it? What is the theme of this? What is the story? When do these things happen? What do I take from it? All right. And these are some of my favorite books from English literature. Some of them you might have read already. Some of them might be a little bit challenging, but get through them. Maybe, if you want to find a translation of it, read the translation and then read the English version. So the first one I always like is Animal Farm. And that's by, who wrote that? Oh, I've forgotten who wrote that. Animal Farm. Let me look that up quickly for us so I remember who wrote that. George Orwell. All right. Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's a short book, but very, very good. It's all about, it's about animals taking over a farm, but it's also about corruption, which is another important theme. And it's about a lot of great characters are in that. Then another one that is a classic is called Lord of the Flies. And if I remember, that is from William Golding. And that is about a group of teenagers that are stuck on an island and what happens to them and how they form a kind of aggressive, angry society and what happens. And it's about how people might become that if they were alone on an island together. Of course, there are some Shakespeare's that you can read if you'd like to try. So you can try Hamlet, like we said. From Shakespeare. And I'm going to give one more, which is Dorian Gray. Sometimes it has a longer title as well. and that is from Oscar Wilde. So that is an older book, but is very, very interesting to read. So if you're going to start your jumping in and diving into English literature, these are good starting off points. And I said I would give you guys the discount code. So the discount code, and if you've been here before, you know what it is. It is Cambly Live, CAMBLYLIVE. So you guys can go and use that, get a nice discount for Cambly. Again, remember, Cambly is a great platform where we do one-on-one lessons in anything. I mean, you could do one-on-one lessons in literature like we did today, or business English, or exam preparation, or grammar. So come, and we're going to help you with whatever you need. If you want to have lessons with me, I think there's going to be a link in the description below. And yes, thank you for joining us here today. Let's just see if there's any last questions. All right, what do we have here? All right. Yes. All right. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for participating. And leave a comment below and tell us if you liked the literature lessons, if we should continue them. And we will see you in another lesson. Bye for now.